The shocking Bible truth about the end times, what Matthew 24 reveals today. It was a dark and stormy night, the kind that enveloped the world in a frenzied whisper. Lightning danced across the sky, illuminating shadows that seemed to writhe and scream. In the distance, a church bell tolled ominously, echoing through the deserted streets. People looked up, alarmed, feeling that something sinister was brewing, something far beyond their understanding. The eerie feeling that wrapped around their hearts was thick like fog, and for a brief moment, the entire town held its breath, sensing an impending doom that played like an unseen symphony in their minds. What was it about this particular night that felt different, even cursed? As the storm unleashed its fury, a figure moved swiftly through the rain-slicked alleyways. John was no ordinary man, he was a seeker, a collector of truths hidden deep within ancient texts. For years, he studied the leaked scrolls and forgotten prophecies, believing that the end of times was coded within the chapters of Matthew 24. And tonight, amidst the thunderclaps, he stumbled upon something that made his blood run cold, a revelation that things were not right in the world, and that very night, the signs were surfacing in ways he could never have expected. His heart raced as he dragged his flashlight through the damp darkness, the beam revealing crumpled papers scattered like whispers of secrets once guarded. There, in the dim light, were symbols he had only seen in old manuscripts, and as he pieced them together, panic clawed at his insides. The prophecy spoke of chaos, wars, and natural disasters. The signs were everywhere. Lightning fixed in the sky like a warning. Ice-cold winds that whispered sweet nothings of despair. Could it be? Were these the signs foretold? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the wind howled and despair settled in, John's determination surged. He clutched tightly to the realization he had uncovered. This wasn't just any ordinary storm, it was the prelude to something greater. Just outside, behind the heavy curtain of raindrops, he could hear a faint rumble. The people were stirring. Their emotions hung thick in the air, confusion shadowing their faces. A woman screamed as a tree snapped in half, the sound jolting the crowd like a defibrillator on a still heart. And then it hit him, the convergence of chaos wasn't merely chance, it was a sign. But as John prepared to share this revelation, something unexpected stopped him in his tracks. A loud thump resonated from the alley behind him. The breath hitched in his throat as he turned, heart hammering like a drum. What lay just beyond the darkness? The answers were lurking there, but was he ready to face what the night had to reveal? The thump came again, louder this time. John's grip on the flashlight tightened, the beam darting towards the sound. His heart pounded in sync with the storm, each clap of thunder merging with the frantic beat of his pulse. The shadows before him danced, twisted, mocking the dread that churned in the pit of his stomach. He took a cautious step forward, the pooling water slick beneath his feet. A creeping fog rolled in, dense and thick, wrapping around his legs like a predator coiling to strike. For a fleeting moment, he thought about turning back, but deep within, something urged him forward. Curiosity. Or madness. It didn't matter, he had to know. Who is there? He shouted, his voice hoarse over the wind, barely above a whisper. The only answer was the relentless rain battering against the alley walls, drowning out the world. Just as he was about to call again, the sound of shuffling met his ears. A figure stumbled into the illuminated space, draped in shadows and drenched to the bone. It was a woman, her face obscured, hair plastered to her forehead. Panic surged through him, but somewhere behind the fear flickered a surge of recognition. Please help me, she gasped, drawing closer, her eyes wide and filled with terror. Who are you? John asked, instinctively stepping back. She looked fragile, like a flame barely hanging on against the wind. Everything is starting, she breathed heavily, eyes darting around as if the darkness itself held secrets meant for her ears alone. We have to get out of here. What do you mean? What is happening? He struggled to keep his voice steady. The urgency in her eyes spoke of horrors intertwined with the very fabric of the storm, and he felt the weight of that truth pressing down on him. Suddenly, a blinding flash lit up the sky, followed by a rumble that wasn't just thunder. It felt alive, a growl echoing from something deeper beneath the earth. The fear in her eyes deepened, and she lunged toward John, clutching his arm. They come. The signs they're real. The end is now. Her words echoed in John's mind, each syllable thrumming with ominous conviction. The ache in his chest tightened. This was the moment he had always dreaded, but had also longed to witness in search of answers. The air thickened around them, charged with a warning. From the darkness, shadows began to break free, figures emerging like ghosts rising from their graves. John's stomach dropped as recognition coursed through him. These were the faces of people he knew, their features twisted in anguish, eyes hollow as if they had seen hell itself. Run! The woman screamed, yanking him away just as the first figure lunged forward. He felt the icy grip of dread firm around him. Her hand was warm and alive, pulling him from the maw of darkness that threatened to swallow them both. Where? He gasped, stumbling as they splashed through the flooded alley. Anywhere but here. But as they dashed for safety, the storm seemed to intensify, the howls of the wind morphing into guttural whispers that seemed to speak his name. A sharp pain radiated through his mind, visions of the prophecies he had studied flashed before him, things he had dismissed as mere allegories now came alive with terrifying clarity. John! The urgent plea shattered his train of thought. The woman tugged harder, her footsteps echoing desperation as the shadows began to close in, the figures of lost souls howling at their backs. Don't look back. Keep running. She urged, but John couldn't shake the weight of the vision swimming through his mind. The prophecies were warning him, but of what exactly? In that moment, he realized he wasn't just running from the shadows. He was running towards the truth. And the truth could consume him whole. As they emerged from the alley into the main street, the full chaos of the storm unveiled itself, a wild symphony of chaos in every corner, just as the prophecies foretold. Streets were erupting with terror, people were panicking, and chaos pulsed like a heartbeat in the night, but behind them, the shadows still chased, hissing promises of despair. What awaited them at the end of their flight? Would they find salvation, or were they merely prolonging the inevitable? The answer was buried somewhere beyond the storm. And they had to find it, but would they discover the truth before it consumed everything they held dear? The pounding rain lashed against John's face as they burst into the street, the chaotic symphony of screams and frantic footsteps surrounding them. Each raindrop felt like a slap, dragging him back into reality when every fiber of his being wanted to remain lost in the fog of anxiety. The woman, still gripping his arm, pulled him away from the flickering streetlight, its glow barely penetrating the oppressive darkness enveloping them. Over there, she shouted, pointing toward a dilapidated storefront that had seen better days. John didn't question it, he followed her, slipping and stumbling across the slick pavement. Each step was a reminder of their urgency, each breath a struggle against the rising tide of fear. Shadows swirled behind them, darker than night itself, whispering sinister secrets caught in the wind. The figures from his past were not just haunting memories anymore, they were real, tangible threats, living nightmares chasing him through the storm. They ducked into the store, the door creaking ominously as they entered. The interior was dark, littered with old cardboard boxes and broken glass. It smelled of mildew and stale air, a graveyard of forgotten things. John scanned the room, searching for anything they could use. His heart raced, pounding louder than the storm outside. Why did you come here? He breathed, trying to calm the shiver racing down his spine. I felt something, she said, glancing nervously at the broken window. The storm is more than just weather, it's a sign. It's bringing them closer. Who are they? John pressed, desperation bleeding through his voice, her eyes darted around, and he could see the anxiety spiraling within her. The ones from the prophecies, the harbingers of the end. You mean? His voice trailed off, the weight of her words settling heavily in his chest. Memories began to swirl again, flashes of verses, warnings that had once felt abstract and far off. They know us, she whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. And they are here for you. The walls seemed to sway as she spoke, the store breathing in sync with the howling storm outside. John felt lightheaded, as if the world around him was fracturing. What do they want? A choice, she replied, her voice trembling. A decision that weighs heavier than life itself. Before he could grasp the magnitude of her words, a thunderous crash echoed through the building, followed by the shattering sound of the front window bursting inward. A silhouette loomed just beyond the entrance, illuminated by the flashes of lightning outside. It was one of the figures, one of the consumed souls come back to collect what was promised. Run! She screamed again, fear propelling her forward. John stumbled as they darted deeper into the store, minute fragments of memory crashing into him. He had spent countless hours poring over those old texts, trying to decipher the meanings, but this was raw, visceral. No chapter had prepared him for the depths of terror laid bare before him. They reached the back door, a flimsy barrier to the chaos radiating outside. John's mind raced. What choice had they truly made, and what lay ahead? As they stood in that dim, flickering light, the shadows pressed in around them, whispering the darker secrets of past lives. His chest tightened with the dawning realization that the last remnants of his normal life were slipping away. He shot a glance back at the woman, her face stricken with determination. "We have to face it," she said, her voice firm despite the threats closing in. "No running from this truth anymore." John's heart thudded painfully in his chest. They were standing at a precipice, not just of survival, but of revelation. In that moment, he knew they had to choose, fight or surrender, but as he pushed open the door, the storm roared like a beast unleashed, ready to swallow them whole, and within that maelstrom, the real truth awaited them, veiled beneath layers of destiny and dread. What horrors would they uncover in the eye of the storm? With one last breath, they stepped through the doorway, into a world waiting to unveil its darkest secrets. The air outside was thick and heavy, charged with an unnameable anticipation. Raindrops, fat and desperate, poured down like bombs set to explode. John and the woman, who he still hadn't asked the name of, emerged into chaos. The street was a hellscape of flashes illuminating terrified faces, creatures twisted with desperation, and empty eyes that seemed to beckon them towards doom. "Where do we go?" John shouted, his voice nearly drowned out by the howling wind. The woman tugged at his arm, fierce determination lighting her features. "We have to reach the old church down the street. It's a sanctuary, at least it was supposed to be." A scream broke through the noise, piercing the veil of panic that hung between them. John's pulse quickened. They weren't just running from threats, they were fleeing from a fate that was rapidly closing in. Dark forms slithered through the shadows, almost as if the storm itself had birthed them from the very ground. They dashed across the street, slipping on the slick pavement, every step a gamble. The church loomed ahead, its spire thrusting desperately towards the stormy sky, a beacon in a sea of despair. "Don't look back," she cried, and John forced himself to focus only on the door swinging wide with a dull thud inside. The atmosphere shifted. The church felt like a time capsule, holding memories of peace and prayer. The flickering light from candles struggled against the darkness, casting long shadows across the cracked pews. He hoped it hadn't fallen into complete disrepair. "Quick, barricade the door," the woman urged. They scrambled, pushing over a heavy table, the wood scraping against stone as they pressed it into place. But the whispers were growing, surrounding them like a rising tide. John's heart pounded, the air feeling thick with unseen eyes. "What now?" he asked, panic creeping into his voice. She turned to him, her expression intense. "We must confront them, John. This is where the choice is made." "Confront who?" he choked, the weight of impending dread enveloping him. "The harbingers," she replied, voice trembling. "And your part in this." Before he could process her words, a guttural roar erupted from outside, followed by a heavy thud against the barricaded door. The sound resonated through the church, vibrating in his bones. John pressed his back against the table, breath catching. "What are they?" "The figments of every fear, every consequence we try to ignore. Our sins, our choices, it all comes back," she said, and he could see the pain swirling in her eyes. The door rattled violently. Shadows slipped under the cracks, dark tendrils seeking entry, a cold rush of air shooting through him like ice water. "You said they were here for me, what do they want?" Her gaze hardened. "To reveal the truth. The choice you must make can either seal your fate or lead us toward redemption." "Redemption?" "This." Another roar shook the door violently. John felt the pressure build in his chest, threatening to overwhelm him. "Listen closely," she said, taking a step closer. "The prophecies were about more than just destruction. This storm, it's a final opportunity for salvation." Lightning flashed outside as if punishing his incredulity. "Salvation? Or is it just another chance to pay for our sins?" "What if it's both?" she asked, urgent. "Are you willing to face it?" The door splintered, wood groaning and cracking as they combined forces to hold it. In that moment, their eyes locked and he felt a strange connection rise, a fragile bond forged in shared despair. But as they pushed against the door, a whisper slithered around them, beckoning him toward a truth, clawing at his mind. The storm gathered intensity. In that fragile moment, the air thickened with dread. "John, we have to decide right now." He felt the world teetering on the edge, everything they knew about right and wrong, good and evil spiraling into chaos. And just as he opened his mouth to answer, the door gave way, an otherworldly howl echoing behind it. What awaited them on the other side would challenge everything he believed they weren't just fighting for survival anymore, they were battling for their souls. The splintered door crashed open, splinters flying like shards of glass. A tempest of darkness poured into the church, swirling like a living entity, enveloping John and the woman. Shadows lunged at them, cold and sharp, every movement a whisper promising anguish. "Hold on to me," she yelled, her voice filled with urgency. He grabbed her wrist, their fingers entwined. Together they staggered back, soldiers retreating from a wave of despair. The church was no longer a place of refuge, it had transformed into a battleground, where past sins and hidden fears twisted into nightmarish forms. "Look," she cried, pointing into the dark. John squinted, trying to pierce through the chaos. Shimmering shapes materialized, faces he recognized but wished he could forget. Each reflection was a ghost from his past, reminders of every decision that had led him to this moment. "Those are your harbingers," she said, her voice trembling as she steeled herself against the reckoning. "You need to face them. All of them." "What do you mean, face them?" he stammered, dread pulling in his stomach. "I can't confront your fears, John. They can't hurt you unless you let them." Her words hung in the air, clashing with the roar of shadows. A figure stepped forward, its hollow eyes boring into him. It was the face of a friend he'd wronged, the weight of their shattered bond hanging heavy between them. "Why did you forsake me?" the apparition whispered, anguish echoing in its hollow chest. John's heart squeezed painfully at the memory of their last fight, the harsh words spoken in anger. Would the truth of his actions be all he ever saw reflected back at him? He faltered. The darkness surged forward, but the woman pulled him back. "You must choose, John. Accept what you've done. It's the only way to move on." Another face emerged, a painful reminder of a love lost. "You left me in my darkest hour," she pleaded, tears glistening like stars. John gritted his teeth, throat tightening. "I didn't mean to. I thought I was saving you." The shadows began to close in, the pain of regret threatening to suffocate him. "You thought? Or did you choose what was easiest?" The voices blended into a haunting chorus, blurring the lines between guilt and absolution. "No," he shouted, a burst of defiance racing through him. "I won't let you drown me in this. I'm here, I can change." Suddenly, a blinding light erupted in the church, illuminating the shadows. The harbingers shrieked, recoiling from the brightness. It was coming from her, the woman at his side, as if she were a beacon of hope flickering against the darkest storm. "Use the light," she urged. "Channel that truth. It's yours. Release it." With resolve surging within him, John stepped forward. "It's time to be honest with myself," he yelled. The shadows writhed as he fixed his gaze on them. "I admit my choices. I regret them. I won't run any longer." Each admission felt like a raw wound, but he pushed through the pain. "They were my choices, and they're part of me, but they don't define me." The darkness shrieked, ripping away, breaking into fragments that danced around him like leaves in a furious wind. Gradually, the figures dissipated, losing their hold on him. Breathless, John felt a strange weight lift off his shoulders. The oppressive shadows receded, leaving feelings of liberation in their wake. Yet, the storm outside howled louder than before, rage unleashed in the tempest. "Is it over?" he gasped, heart racing with adrenaline. The woman's eyes glimmered with something unyielding. "No. The truth is just the beginning. The hardest choices are still ahead." The church trembled around them, the storm furious and insatiable. John sensed another challenge looming, darker than the last. "Brace yourself," she said softly. "The real test is yet to come." With a fierce resolve burning in her eyes, they turned to face the storm. What awaited them beyond the door was a confrontation they hadn't prepared for. They had faced their past, but could they survive their future? The air outside roared like a freight train, violent and chaotic. John and the woman stood at the church door, their hearts thudding in sync with the tempest. The light that had burst forth from her had offered them a precious moment of clarity, but it was fading fast. They had fought shadows, but now they were faced with the storm itself. "Are you ready?" she asked, glancing sideways at him, her grip tightening around his hand as if channeling strength through their touch. John nodded, though doubt twisted his insides. Ready as I'll ever be. With that, they stepped over the threshold, the world outside draped in a shroud of swirling darkness. Rain pelted them, hot and cold at once, an angry reminder of everything they had just faced. Thunder cracked across the sky, an ominous warning. As they moved forward, shapes began to form in the downpour. Figures danced at the edge of his vision, fleeting and indistinct, yet undeniably familiar. Memories came rushing back, half-formed and haunting. Each shape felt like a reminder of choices he wished would stay buried in the past. Don't let them distract you. The woman shouted, her voice barely carrying over the thunderous skies. Stay focused. With determination, he pushed aside their ghostly whispers. He looked straight ahead, just focusing on the path before them. Every step felt heavy, as though the ground itself was resisting their advance. Suddenly, the winds changed direction, swirling and building into a frenzy. A violent gust nearly toppled John, and he grabbed hold of the doorframe to regain his balance. The woman pulled him closer, steeling herself against the gusts. Remember the light. Use it. She urged, her eyes brightening with unyielding strength. He closed his eyes momentarily, nodding. Taking a deep breath, John centered himself, tried to push back against the dread. As he opened his eyes again, the tempest split apart, revealing a figure standing amidst the storm. It was a silhouette, menacing and powerful. John recognized the shape. It was the image of his father, long gone but never forgotten. The storm swirled around him, whipping up waves of emotions that crashed into John like waves against the shore. John, you've never been enough, the figure said, its voice penetrating the storm with icy clarity. You let me down, just like you've let everyone else down. Can you truly change? His chest tightened, suffocating him with pain. I am not that person anymore. John shouted, breaking through the storm as chorus. I've faced my past. I've accepted it. I'm moving forward. The figure loomed larger, shadows twitching around it, doubt dripping like rain. But what if you fail again? What if this is just a repeat, a cycle of your own making? No. John cried, fists clenching. I won't let that fear control me anymore. I've made my choices, yes. But I have the power to choose again. With that declaration, the storm began to dissipate, winds shifting violently, retreating back into the maelstrom that had triggered the onslaught. Behind John, the church stood illuminated, a sanctuary glittering against the dark, its light beckoning. Look. The woman gasped, pointing into the gloom that was slowly being blown away. Light seeped into the cracks of shadows around them, illuminating paths forward. Can you see it, John? This is our chance. Her words were a lifeline, drawing him into the light. But the moment was short-lived. Just as they took a step forward, another figure appeared, a tall, ominous figure wearing a hood that obscured its face. Every instinct screamed danger. Your fears are not done with you yet, it hissed, voice a slithering whisper in the storm. John felt a cold sweat trickle down his spine. Heart pounding, adrenaline spiking, he braced for what this new specter would reveal. Are we strong enough for this? He wondered, anxiety clawing at his heart. As the storm raged anew, they stood frozen, anxiety twisting in their guts. What deadly truth awaited them in the eye of the storm? The air grew thick with an unsettling tension, almost suffocating. John felt the cold gaze of the hooded figure bore into him, like a predator sizing up its prey. A chill racked his body, and he glanced sideways at the woman. Her jaw was set, determination mixed with apprehension in her eyes. What do you want from us? John shouted, his voice straining against the howling winds. He would not let fear take root, not again. The apparition seemed to lean closer, its voice curling around him like smoke. I am the embodiment of your darkest fears, it hissed, barely above a whisper. The truths you've hidden away, the failures you've coddled. John's stomach twisted. It was right. The voices of his past echoed loudly, replaying moments he wished he could erase, the slip-ups, the betrayals, each mistake hanging like a noose around his neck. Stop it. He shouted, shaking his head. I want to listen. I know who I am now. Do you? The shadow's laughter cut through the storm, a cruel sound that danced with the wind. When the choice is between confronting your past or succumbing to it, what will you really choose? Thunder rumbled ominously overhead, and the rain came down harder, lashing at him like needles. Memories surged forth, unraveling his resolve, a snap promise, a job lost due to his recklessness, a relationship that crumbled under weight he never faced. He could feel the woman's grip on his hand tighten. "You are more than your mistakes, John," she urged. "We can't let this figure define us. Together, we are stronger." The words, simple yet laced with power, forced John to glance back at her. He saw not just fear, but faith in her eyes, a light that pierced the darkness surrounding them. Maybe the answer lay not in fighting alone but in embracing the power of their bond. "I will not be your prisoner," John roared, his voice echoing even against the roar of the storm. He felt rage mixing with despair, fueling his resolve. "I will step forward, regardless of what you throw at me." As if responding to his declaration, the figure quivered, shadows rippling down its cloak like ink in water. "Very well, then. But know this, the real storm is yet to come." With that, it raised a hand, and the winds shrieked in fury. Lightning blasted down, striking the ground just feet away, sending shards of light ricocheting in every direction. John flinched, heart racing, mind racing faster. "Stay together," the woman shouted, pulling him closer as the energy crackled around them. Suddenly, the storm shifted again. The dark clouds began swirling into a funnel, forming a vortex above them. The singular focus of the storm turned menacing, drawing in everything: refuse, broken dreams, even scraps of light into its insatiable maw. "Where is the light?" John yelled, desperation creeping into his voice. "We need the light. Remember the church?" she cried, eyes sparkling with purpose. "We just have to find it again." But they were losing ground, thunder clapping loudly, drowning out their hopes. The figures of their past loomed closer, whispers clawing at their minds. They were staring into a void that threatened to swallow them whole. "John," the woman shouted, gripping his arm harder. "We can face this together. I believe in you. We can still change the course of this storm." But he could feel the weight of all that had come before pressing down on him. Would it be enough? As the vortex unleashed its fury, spiraling faster and faster, John screamed against the tempest, his voice a defiant beacon piercing through chaos. "We won't drown. We'll rise." But would they? Amidst the relentless winds, a new entity began to form, shadowy and dark, a culmination of his worst fears, rising up to meet them in the eye of the storm. And just then, the raging winds ceased, almost as if the world took a collective breath. The quiet that followed was unsettling. What truth lay hidden in the calm before the tempest? The world around John felt frozen, caught in a moment where anticipation and dread hung like heavy fog. The air crackled, making his skin tingle, as he and the woman stood at the epicenter of an invisible war. The ominous black figure before them twisted and expanded, pulsating with a life of its own. It seemed to absorb the darkness swirling in the vortex above, feeding off their fears. "John," the woman said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Focus on the light. Remember who we are." But as shadows from their past swirled closer, John struggled to hold on. Each face bore a weight he could hardly bear. His heart felt like it was shattering, a kaleidoscope of regret and shame. With every passing moment, the dark figure grew bolder, its features starting to shift and morph into the familiar likenesses of those he had hurt or failed. "Stop!" John gasped, clutching his head as if he could drown out the visual onslaught. "This isn't real." "You're right, it's not real." The woman squeezed his hand. "We have to break free from it together. Remember that day in the church? That light, feel it again." It was a memory wrapped in warmth, a soft glow, laughter, and hope after too many dark days. John inhaled deeply, a flicker of determination igniting within him. Could he truly harness that light? But the hooded figure laughed, a sound sharp and chilling, pulling John back down into the depths of his mind. "You think you can escape? Your failures define you, John. They will always haunt you. Not if I refuse to let them." He roared, pushing back against the torment. "I am not my mistakes." With a sudden burst of clarity, he glanced at the woman. In her eyes, he found a fierce light, a lifeline against the consuming shadow that loomed larger with every heartbeat. "Together," he whispered, the word weaving through the storm around them. As if recognizing their unity, the vortex above swirled violently, drawing in remnants of despair. John felt the rush of energy, stinging his skin like static electricity. He remembered her faith in him as they tore through the storm. "Now!" he shouted, raising their joined hands to the sky. Let us send this darkness back. Bright beams of silver light erupted from their hands as they linked their shared resolve. The radiance tore through the suffocating gloom, illuminating the space around them. The hooded figure recoiled as light struck, splattering the shadows into mere wisps of smoke. Come on. The woman urged, determination fueling her voice. Push harder, John. John dug deep, pedaled to the metal against all he'd ever fear. The swirling shadows shrieked, voices rising in a cacophony. Memories of pain and guilt began to shatter like glass, exploding around them until only their radiant light remained. Believe? She yelled, a fierce light reflecting in her gaze. With one final surge of strength, they thrust their hands out before them. As an explosion of brightness cascaded through the vortex, it folded in on itself, banishing the figure that had tormented him. The winds howled with fury, but John felt lighter, a breath of hope igniting inside him. Suddenly, silence fell again, as though the world paused to recover from the confrontation. But they could still feel the tremors beneath their feet. The shadows may have retreated, but a new tension brewed in the atmosphere, something more insidious, lurking just beyond their line of sight. What now? John asked, his breath heavy. Before she could respond, a chilling whisper slithered through the air. You may have banished me for now, but I will return, stronger than before. Prepare yourselves. And just like that, the light dimmed, leaving only an abyss where certainty once stood. What new challenge awaited them, one that might push their bond to its limits? The ground beneath them quaked, rippling with the aftermath of their battle. Shadows writhed in the corners of their vision, shifting and whispering, echoing the dark figure's ominous promise. John took a step back, heart pounding, as the air turned thick with foreboding. What did it mean by stronger? He muttered, scanning the horizon for signs of danger. It felt like they were walking a tightrope over an abyss. The woman remained steady, but John's unease snaked into her gaze. We have to stay vigilant. That was just a warning. The real fight isn't over. Just then, a tremor shot through the ground, toppling them both. John felt dizzy, fighting to maintain balance. The shadows were back, creeping closer, forming familiar shapes that sent chills racing up his spine. John. She shouted, her voice cutting through the fear. Focus on what we built together. We can't allow this darkness to taint our light again. He nodded, but his heart raced with doubt. It was easy to feel empowered when the light was bright, but how could they stand against an enemy that knew their inner demons? They weren't just fighting a monster, they were wrestling with the darkest parts of themselves. Suddenly, darkness surged toward them like a wave, wrapping around John's legs. He could feel the weight of his past mistakes tugging at him, insisting he surrender. Memories flashed, a friend's disappointment, a missed opportunity, promises never kept. The cruel laughter returned, louder and more menacing. Remember all you've lost, it taunted, each word dripping with malice. The light means nothing when you're just a shadow of who you used to be. Shut up. John yelled, yanking his foot free and lunging toward the woman. Let us do this. Together. She grasped his hand, her grip strong. We are more than our past. We are fighting for our future. John held onto that thought tightly, forcing himself to breathe. Right, let us push forward. We can't let it win. Together, they summoned their light once more. This time, the warmth expanded from within, a beacon against the cold grip of despair. The shadows hesitated, retreating for the briefest moment. But it wasn't enough. With a ferocious roar, the darkness charged again, swirling up around them, churning like a storm. The whispers turned into screams, a cacophony of doubts and regrets that clawed at their sanity. John flinched as images swirled again, his failures, the faces of people he'd hurt, all those moments of silence when he should have fought harder. Don't listen. The woman screamed, shaking him out of his stupor. This is a lie. We have the strength inside us. Her belief reignited something deep within him. What if they could confront those shadows head on? What if facing their darkness made it weaker? Together. He shouted, determination flooding him like fire. Let us break the cycle. They intertwined their fingers, creating a wall of light, pushing through the oppressive darkness. It wrapped around them, trying to suffocate their resolve, but they fought back with every ounce of strength. A sudden flare of brilliance illuminated their surroundings. With renewed hope, they pressed on. But as the light burned brighter, the shadows reformed, grasping at the edges of their minds. Suddenly, a chilling voice echoed, dripping with malice. You are only delaying the inevitable. I will return, and when I do, You won't stand a chance. The pressure intensified, and in a blink, the light dimmed once more. The very ground beneath them trembled violently, threatening to swallow them whole. John, the woman's voice was barely a whisper, fear etched on her face. This isn't over. He spat, attempting to project strength, feeling it crack within him. But as the whispers crescendoed again, a flicker of doubt crept in. They stood against darkness before, but could they do it again? And then, just beyond the shadows, a flicker caught his eye silhouette, almost familiar, but shrouded in darkness. Who was it? What did it mean for their fight? The storm raged on, the air thick with chaos, and the world had never felt more alive and terrifying. John and the woman stood side by side, determination etched into their faces, yet the uncertainty loomed, casting shadows deeper than the night. The swirling darkness whispered promises of despair, yet within them burned a flicker of hope. They had battled the remnants of their past, but now a new trial awaited them, a harbinger of fears yet to come. Keep your focus, the woman urged, her voice resonating like a bell through the murmur of chaos. This is our moment to confront it once and for all. John nodded, closing his eyes momentarily to ground himself amidst the howling winds. He thought of their shared struggles, the raw truth that had emerged in the church. Those moments of clarity propelled him forward. There was truth in vulnerability, strength in embracing what made them human. It was time to stop letting shadows define him. He opened his eyes. We are not alone, he shouted, rallying his strength. In a unified motion, they pulled the warmth of their unified determination towards the forefront. Light cuts through this darkness, John declared as they began to channel that shared hope, intertwining their fingers, creating a radiant barrier that pushed against the shadows. We choose to rise. The darkness snarled, resisting their light with venomous intensity. Yet, the warmth expanded, cascading waves of brilliance that illuminated the forgotten corners of despair. The voices of countless regrets faltered in the face of their combined strength. Can you see it? The woman breathed, her eyes shining brightly as she pulled John closer. The light is living. We are the architects of our own redemption. In the heart of that storm, John felt a weight lift as he confronted the hooded figure that stood before them, its form swirling with dark energy. Memories of failure fluttered by like ghosts, whispering doubts that threatened to tear them apart. Shadows slithered around them, but they held resolutely to their bond. You think you can escape the truth, the figure hissed, each syllable striking like ice. The fears you've buried will return to claim you. No. John shouted defiantly, his anger igniting like wildfire. They are part of my story, but they want to dictate my destiny. In that moment, he felt the woman's unwavering conviction, solidifying their resolve like twin stars burning brightly against an encroaching void. Together, we have the power to rewrite our futures, she exclaimed, and so they pushed forward, channeling everything, their truths, their fears, and their hopes into a singular force. The shadows shrieked as the light intensified, pushing back against their very essence. Feel the truth, John cried, feeling the warmth surge through every ounce of his being. We were born for this. With a deafening roar, the dark figure dissolved under the brilliance of their combined light, fragments scattering into the fabric of the storm. The wind howled with fury, attempting to drown out their cries, but each step pulled them toward clarity and freedom. As the remnants of the darkness faded, the tumult of the storm began to calm. Yes. The woman cheered, her voice breaking through the tranquil echoes, the shadows dissipating around them. Keep going, we can break the cycle. But just then, a figure emerged from the shadows, strikingly familiar, a haunting visage cloaked in darkness. John's heart sank. It was his father's ghost, but this time, it was a reflection of failure. It was a summons to confront not only the past but also the choices he would make anew. Can you acknowledge the pain you've caused? The figure asked, voice haunting yet sorrowful. Can you forgive yourself? A tightness locked in John's chest. I can. I choose to forgive myself. The shadows shrieked, recoiling from the conviction in his voice. But will they forgive you? It echoed, the memory of all he had left behind clawing at his resolve. He glanced at the woman beside him, her gaze unwavering. With a deep breath, a rush of authenticity washed over him. The past is part of me, but it won't be my prison. Then a moment of solidarity sparked. Standing here and fighting for my truth means embracing the choices I made, John declared, the warmth of acceptance flooding him. I hold the power to begin again. With that declaration, the figure of his father faded, returning to the shadows, and John felt the chains break. Yes. The woman shouted, triumph sparkling in her eyes. We did it. But horror struck. The storm began swirling once more, the wind picking up with fury unlike anything they defaced. It howled and bellowed, filling the air with a cacophony of threats as new shadows emerged. The hooded figure returned, its malevolence stronger than before, now joined by an army of specters. See. You think you've escaped, but this is only the beginning. Yet, together, they stood resolute. The storm couldn't claim them. Not now. Not ever. The depth of human spirit, resilience, and connection brought forth the raw power of transformation. With a brand new burst of energy, they shouted together, their voices melding into an anthem against despair. Our journey away from the shadows starts now. And as the storm raged one final time, John and the woman prepared to embrace whatever came next, not as timid souls but as warriors carrying the brightness of hope together. After all they had faced, the truth remained they were the author of their own narrative and the architects of their tomorrows. With hands still tethered, they stepped forward into the unknown, ready to rewrite their tale against the storm. There, on the cusp of whatever awaited them, John knew they'd face it together. You need to subscribe now to catch every exclusive story we bring to life. Let's keep this adventure going. Smash that like button now if you felt the intensity of their struggle and triumph. Make sure to flood the comments with your thoughts on their epic battle against fear and what it means for your own journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends. Let us spread this message far and wide. Your support makes all the difference.